Hi, guys. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Two Black, Two Blonde podcast. My name is Femi, and as always, I'm not alone here today. I have amazing co hosts with me. I have my friend and brother, Haruna,
Hi
and I,
guys.
and I also have the magnificent and beautiful Ebon.
Hi.
Today, we have a very, very interesting conversation. But before we get started, make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications so that you'll be the first to know when we release a new episode. Today, we'll be talking about African dating and dating in the diaspora. A lot of times I've heard people say dating is different back in Africa, dating is different in the diaspora, maybe because of cultural differences, maybe because of family issues and family pressures and things like that. So we'll be going into these conversations. And that brings me to my first question. Do you think dating is actually different in Africa and different from what we have here?
For me, I feel like it's different. And I mean, I wouldn't be able to speak for the whole of Africa, but for Nigeria, where I'm from, I feel like dating is different. I think that the expectations, for instance, are different. And I feel like it's basically maybe because of the different cultures and different factors that play into why people act the way they act or what they expect from a relationship.
Yeah.
Personally, I've dated people here and I've dated people back home, and to be honest with you, I may not be able to generalize it, but I feel like it's different in terms of expectations. Back home we're pretty much tilted towards the traditional way of doing things. Where a man is the provider, he protects, then the woman is pretty much helping, nurturing, supporting, and I think that's basically where it tilts to from my own experience. But here it's pretty much a bit more of I would say not traditional, but then it's pretty much like you see that you could actually ask a girl out, and when you go out on a date, she wants to pay a part of the money for the drinks or whatever. And usually if you move in with a lady, it's pretty much, there's this sense of I can support in some way or another. But back home, it's pretty much the guy that would foot the bill, So that's just one aspect,
Of it being different.
of it, but there's so many other factors, so that's pretty much what I think. It's different, definitely for me.
What do you think, Heaven? Is dating different in Africa? Is it different here?
To be honest, I've not done a lot of dating. So
Okay.
where do I start from? So the difference between here and back home, I think pretty much it would be the culture. Aside that, and also it was quite easy back home because I mean I don't have to code switch, to be honest.
Mhm.
I don't have to explain some jokes. I don't have to, like, you wouldn't have to do a bunch of things if you were dating somebody back home, right?
Mhm.
It was quite easy back home. Here, I haven't really, like I said, I haven't really dated, but here it's different. I don't know how to explain it. It's just different, to be honest.
I mean, I agree with you when the culture is the same, right? You grow up
It
in the same
flows.
societal values and all of that. It's pretty much easy to be able to align with that person, right?
Yeah.
But also, one thing I've also noticed is that back home, there's like dating back home when you are dating somebody, there's this expectation that's always leading to marriage. Even if you don't set those labels, there's always, at the back of your mind, the lady already knows that I'm going into this with the intention of. Here, I noticed that you could be in a relationship, and sometimes some people will tell you, "Oh, I just want a short-term thing." It's not something I used to see a lot back home, where people just say, "Oh, we're just dating for. I just want a short-term relationship. Like, I want to date somebody for the winter." You hear things like
Something
that
like
here,
that.
but
Yeah.
back home you hear people when they go into relationship, even though when it starts, it doesn't just go into we're dating for to get married, but at the back of your mind, you just know that
Yeah.
this
But I
is
think
heading somewhere.
Yeah, but I think that is changing over time. I feel like now, I don't know, over time, I feel like Nigerians are now they can just go into a relationship just for it, and they see, let's see where it leads to. I think in the past, I would think that, that would most likely would have been the intention, where after a while it's like, what are we? And that what are we is that, is it going to be long term? Are you looking to, wife me or whatever it is, but now I think that it's with the Gen Zs and the new, generation, I feel like they are really more open, and two people can just go into a relationship just for it and see how it goes. If it's strong and it's, then they could probably take it further to getting married and all of that. So and for you, I agree with you. Yeah, it's quite different. You can meet someone and they are as blunt as possible. They can tell you, this is what I want. I just want to have someone. I just want to have a friends with, like, it's they're very very open about what they want, and all of that. And I feel like there's not so much pressure here to get married. You can see people too. I mean, I have friends that moved in together with their partners, and it's just, they live like they are couples, but there's nothing about marriage. They're not saying anything. They just, and if it works, fine. If it doesn't, you just, I've moved on, and that's it. So I think that's what I think.
Do you also think, because you just made a point that that resonates, do you think it's because of our society? That's why there's always this pressure to get married before you start having kids. Here, you could just move in with somebody, like you said. You could even have kids. And all of, like, you don't necessarily have to put the label, do the marriage thing.
Yeah, I feel like back home in Nigeria, I feel like we place a lot of emphasis on marriage. There's this, I don't know if it's the stereotype, or there's this notion that if you're married, there's this certain level of respect people give to you.
Yeah.
And there's this, when you hear, the woman is a married woman or something like this, there's this stereotype that they give. And if you're not married, or take for instance now, there's some places where if you want to rent an apartment in Nigeria, they ask you if you're married.
Yeah.
And I'm married, them asking you is to gauge the level of how responsible they think you are. You have a kid to take care of, you have a wife, or so a lot of people do that, even on the women's side too, not just the men. They will ask you, are you married? Are you maybe she's hustling or something like that, so they don't want to. So we have those kind of scenarios. So I think it's also the what they call it, the way the culture is. Married people tend to be deemed as more responsible.
Yeah.
And so usually when the lady gets into a relationship, and they say, she's hitting 30, or she's like, what are we doing? Because the goal for her is, let me get married and my status in quote changes. And so I think that's also a factor, the culture. Yeah.
And there's also family pressure.
Yes,
like you said, when a lady gets into her 30s, the family's already asking, when is the husband coming? When are you going to get married? And things like that. So I feel like the family pressure also affects, also plays a role, I would say, kind of.
It does, for both men and women. And take, for instance, a lady who is possibly in her 30s and, wants to get married, wants to have kids, because usually by 40, 45, they can't, she will put pressure on the man and be like, what is this? What are we doing? And all of that. The man, he may not be ready, but he has to make a decision. If not, he can lose possibly someone that he sees as a good partner, So it's also some form of pressure on the man, to make sure that he steps up and gets married, even though he may not be ready, So,
but do you see that kind of family pressure here?
Are you talking about people that live here, who grew up here? No, not at all. It's totally different. I have friends that are married and divorced, and they don't care. I have some that have people that they live with, and they haven't even mentioned anything about marriage. We're just coexisting, we're cohabiting together,
and they're just fine with it.
They're just fine, and they do like couples, and they do. Back home, we'll frown on that, because to us it's not, it's not Bible. So from a Christian point of view, my parents will frown would not want that to happen. They want, define it. Are you guys going to get married? Then get married. Why are you people just living like that? But yeah, it's normal.
So that's still that family influence again.
Yes, that's the family thing.
Yeah.
And we come from a culture where family is very, very important. And whatever you're doing, family will always talk and they'll always want to be involved. It's a very individualistic society.
They literally say once you marry the family also.
Yes.
So you always have to take a look at the family you're marrying into and things like that, because the family plays a very, very big role in marriages, right?
Yeah.
So let's look at traditional gender roles now. Let's talk about gender roles in relationships. Is it the same what it used to be back home? Is it the same today? People talk about, the lady has specific chores she needs to do. The man is supposed to provide financially. But those things are changing now, right?
Yes.
Let's talk about what it is like back home and what we see today in the 21st century.
I mean, I feel like I said, I feel like a lot of things have changed over time back home, and people are beginning to be more open-minded. But I still feel like a chunk of a substantial. I still feel like the traditional way of doing things is still very prevalent in the dating culture in Nigeria. Because it's usually the man stepping up to be able to provide and stuff like that, and possibly have a good job and prospects and all of that. And for the woman, it's pretty much, you're there, you can give me sex, you can give me comfort, and it's not 50-50, it's not 70-30, my money is my money, stuff like that. I feel like it's still tilted that way, but it's changing, and I think why it's changing is because a lot of baggage comes with it being in that traditional setting, because the men try to impose their authority and try to, and so the women are realizing that for them to be able to be free, like the way you see Gen Zs talk and all of that, they have to secure the bag themselves too. So a man would not just come and, just be like, I have an authoritative, how do I put it? It's not pretty much a top-down kind of relationship, so I pay your bills, I do also. I think that's where, for now, currently back home, it's still tilted towards
the man taking a large chunk of the financial responsibility.
Exactly. But it's totally different. Totally, the culture here is different. The ladies very confident. If you go out and on a date with a very of course there are trashy ones, but if you go out with a very sophisticated lady here, the way they talk, the way I find it very, very attractive, and I feel like the culture here encourages that, for ladies here, compared to back home, and they always want to, it's more 50-50, or even if it's not 50-50, they will contribute in some way. If you bought something, they will buy groceries, or they will buy you a gift, something like that.
Because this is a capitalist economy. There's always bills to pay. So there's always bills to pay. So if you leave the financial responsibility to just the guy, it might be overwhelming sometimes.
Yes.
So, but also I've seen online, for example, I've seen people complaining about, dating back home, the lady just wants to go to fancy restaurants, and we're not even having time to have conversations where we get to know each other. And then here I've met people who just want to go on a coffee date, right? You're just going to actually have conversations to know the person, not necessarily going to spend so much money and these are things I see and I'm like, it's really, really different here.
Yes.
The approach to dating and things like that is really different.
It's very, very different,
And I also think it's switching up back home as well. If my male friends, when they tell me, they're single, and I wouldn't understand, I'm always shocked. Like, what do you mean? Like, because I feel like it's more of who they're going for. Like, why are you going for a woman that wants you to pay for the date and that's all she's there for? To be honest, it's more like who exactly are you going for? I have a friend. I haven't really met her in person, but we
Mhm.
like follow each other on Instagram,
Mhm.
and she's doing well for herself, very well for herself. And then we had a conversation. She told me she was single. I almost flew, like, entered the phone. I'm like, why are you single? Because this is somebody who's like myself, a president of something. Like, she's leading a very good movement in Nigeria, and she's telling me she's single. Like, how are you single? Like, all these men are seeing you and are their eyes closed. So I think, like, things are switching back also in Nigeria. It's just more like, where are you looking into? Like, where are you going to look forward to date, to be
Yeah.
honest?
Yeah.
But to add to what you're saying, don't you think that there's this saying that the Nigerian men are pretty much not comfortable dating women that seem to be very comfortable, especially financially? So you hear things that,
Yeah.
don't drive this car out to, like, the mother of a lady could tell the lady, don't drive this kind of big car, or drive it so that men can approach
It's
you.
the whole traditional thing. It doesn't. I feel like this is 2026. Those things should not matter, but because of it's more feeding into the ego of men. To be honest, because I don't know how a man would be intimidated by a woman having her own things, which is So it's because of the whole traditional gender. A man wants to feel like he's in charge, which to me, I don't think that a woman having her own thing removes you from being the leader or being in charge of the whole
But
thing.
usually those kind of cases, you hear things like, I married her and then she became this in the bank, and you hear issues of, oh, she needs to leave that job, or she does something in the house and be like, oh, because you've become a bank manager or whatever now, so you're disrespecting me, even though it's not necessarily disrespect, but the man would deem it that way because he would link it to that oh, she's probably feeling that she's big, or I don't know, so
it's just there are conversations that should be had before you go and date somebody. It's things like that. So what happens if, like, you already know the reality of both of you before you start dating? So if she's earning more than you, what you guys should be having conversations that will be tilting more towards, how are we handling things, how are we handling our finances, who is paying for what, things like that, so that you're not so that no one person is not feeling disrespected.
But for you, this scenario is before they get married. What if they get married and things change? You hear issues.
That's the reason why they should still have those conversations, because life is not like it's a wave. It's up and down. Like, it doesn't go smooth. So that's why, and I feel like those conversations not being had, or you're not even fully understanding who you're dating in the first place before you go ahead to marry them, is what's causing like a lot of breakup.
Yeah.
And sometimes the dynamics change. Like, you see on TikTok or social media where you hear a story of two couples went to the UK.
Yeah, I see
and
that.
all of it. I'm sure you have seen something like that. And then they started walking or something, and they'll start having issues that they would naturally not have back home.
So that's what you were talking about, right? Back home, it's like the man was providing.
Yeah.
You move to the West and the bills are too much, and then the lady starts to work. She starts to contribute to the household, and then it's like, I can't contribute and be doing house chores alone.
Yeah.
Right? I can't contribute and be at home. She was doing all the house chores because the man was contributing financially. But now she's also contributing financially and expects the man to also do, some of the house chores, and then they start having problems.
Yeah, and I even think when women ask for that, it's not even from a place of, oh, I'm already having to pay something, so you do something in the house. It's from a place of them being exhausted.
Assist. Yeah.
They're tired.
You need to
so
assist.
it doesn't make sense to have to drag your man to come and assist in the house, to be honest. So that's why as little as these conversations might seem, they must be had, to be honest, because some men don't see themselves. I saw a tweet recently, was it yesterday, that's trending, something about a man complaining about changing diapers for his own child, and it seemed so mean and demeaning,
like he didn't want to do it.
He did not want to do it. He doesn't see it as something that a man should do. So that's why I'm saying, like, these conversations must be had. Like, it must seem very little or even inconsequential, but I don't think so. Some men are trained, and also you're meeting a man that is from a different background. So you're meeting somebody who another person has trained. You don't know how he has experienced his parents' marriage, or even if he even experienced a marriage from his parents at all. So you don't know these things. That's why you should know people before you go ahead to be in relationships with them, to be honest. So you know what to expect for the most part.
Like very traditional African men, for example, would say, I like to eat fresh meals every day. When you know this woman also went to work came back the same time you're coming back, and then you expect her to go cook for you because you want to eat fresh meals every day, right? It's not just going to work. You have to assist, you have to compromise on certain things. And that's that brings me to the issue of equality also. Like you said, communication is key. What rules are you going to play? Back home, you could have domestic workers. You're not going to have all that.
No, if you're gonna pay,
you're gonna pay top dollar for that.
Yeah.
So you're not gonna have you have to do it yourself. Right. And if you have to do it yourself, your wife is not gonna do everything for you, or your girlfriend is not gonna do everything for you. You have to physically contribute. It's not just the financial aspect now. It's you taking some of these responsibilities and all of that. And it's still an issue for a lot of people. Like you said, upbringing matters a lot. This is what you saw in your family growing up, and that's what you expect. But the world is changing, things are changing, right? And then you still expect that your wife should do these things when you know that, she also went to work
and
she also closed 5 p.m. like you did, and then she can't come back and start,
Yeah, and that's where the discussion of, equity versus equality comes in. Because I don't think that there's anything in marriage, it should not be us being equal. It should be more of what is fair, to be honest.
Yes, what is fair.
Yeah.
And you can always have those conversations and agree on what you can, hey, take care of this. You do this. Is it okay? If it's not okay, you let your voice be heard and let.
Yeah, it's that. And then the reason why there's also issues, I think, is because when it comes to fairness, right? And also when it comes to fairness, men the ego would always be a thing. It's just for the woman to understand that because we're trying to be fair does not mean that I'm going to bring down my husband. And the respect still has to be there, because whether we like it or not, he's still the head of the house, right? So the respect is still what men don't want to lose. And for the most part, when you hear these stories, the respect is out the window. It's gone. That's why you see that there's a lot of problems in the house, to be honest.
Yeah.
Do you also think that's the reason why there's a lot of divorce these days?
Yeah.
Because there's no honest communication. You don't find a balance between these things, right? And at the end of the day, the lady's tired. She starts to grow resentment. The guy is also tired and saying she's not fulfilling certain things that I think she should be doing. And then they just go their separate ways.
Yeah, I agree. Divorce these days has been. I was telling you about the wedding that I attended in the past, and within 3 months they had already broken up, and I was like,
weddings are so expensive.
Yes, they had a very big wedding. I was like, what went wrong? And I feel like during the dating period, you make sure that you all the red flags, try and iron it. The ones that are non-negotiable. Don't try to make a case for the person. If it's not what it is, just walk. It may hurt you, but just walk away.
Yeah.
Make sure that all the red flags, you iron them out, and you're very sure that this is not what I'm saying, and all of that, But to be honest, these days the divorce rate, you'll be surprised that back in the day where it was pretty much the traditional way of doing things, and before you even get married, or you're in an arranged marriage, the wife already knows her duty and all of that. They may not even know themselves. They may not have even had like some form of courtship. But you find out that they still stay together and they would have kids and they would live long. But these days, even with the whole courtship and dating and everything, we have the divorce rates have, pretty much gone up. Even for a place like Nigeria that it wasn't really rampant in the past. But now it's pretty much the norm, with celebrities, with, you see all sorts,
Yeah, but, the whole back in the day thing, I think I want to bring it back because back in the day, they had marriages that they had to endure. From what I'm seeing now, it's like a lot of people in their 50s are coming out to, talk about how marriage. We all know that marriage is not easy. And a lot of them they are now coming out to say how they had to endure a lot of things. And I feel like they wouldn't have divorced more because of what the society would have said. They had issues too, to be
Yeah,
honest. It was just a lot of them I found also were just living like as roommates. Do you understand?
Yes.
So it's not like, oh, I don't really think that maybe there's a slight difference between then and now, but then it was more them having to endure themselves, like just tolerate themselves.
Yeah,
do you understand?
Even though they were unhappy, they just had to stay because of what society
and
would
you know,
say.
now we're woke, we're not trying to be unhappy with our whatever, so any small inconvenience, we're out of it, to be honest.
Yeah,
I agree with that, but also I'm beginning to see a trend where social media is playing a lot of influence in relationships and marriages. You see somebody who had was married for 2 years, had a failed wedding, and then a failed marriage, not wedding, and then they begin to advise people on what marriage should look like. Your marriage failed,
and so you shouldn't be
the one to come and be telling me about what marriage should look like.
Yeah.
But because they're celebrities, they have a voice, people listen to them nonetheless, and then they're giving you advice on, if the man does this, you should just leave, or if the woman does this, you should just leave. And then these things also play a part because people listen to these people, and then the information you feed yourself gradually it starts becoming a part of you, and then you start acting on it.
Yeah, that's crazy. And these days you see on social media where the wife and the husband will write one long story of what happened, and people start taking sides and making the stuff worse. But the funny thing is that it's feeding people's that is a feed to people, and it shapes how they think or how they should see marriage, and all of that. So it's crazy.
Social media has played a huge role when it comes to relationships. It's also why you would seem like people, I mean, maybe ladies, let me say ladies in this sense now, would want a man that is richer or more well-to-do than them, because on social media you're seeing that, this man is doing, everybody now is a content creator, like okay, a day in my life, or come with me to come and come and shop, use my husband's credit card, whatever, things like that. It's like putting pressure on females that are single and don't have anybody. Okay, so they're saying these things and they're like, okay, a regular average guy, 9-to-5 guy has come to them to ask them out. They're not going to give in. I have a friend that wouldn't date somebody if they don't have a car. Like, it's just what they're saying. Like, if these girls can get it, I can get it too. To be honest,
I'm not gonna settle for less.
Yeah, so social media is causing people to not have a mind of their own anymore. They just want to have whatever it is that they see strangers on the internet have, and it's really affecting the whole relationship thing and people's expectations of it.
That brings me to an idea: should a man's value depend on how much he earns or how much he's worth?
To be honest, I'm answering as a female and as myself. Disclaimer. No, it shouldn't be dependent on how much he earns. But I think that you should look out for. Now, it depends on what the relationship is or where it's going to, right? For the most people would say, I've seen on Twitter, they'll tell you don't look for potential, but I promise you that's what you should be looking for.
Exactly.
It's like
exactly.
You may meet somebody now. A lot of our parents didn't meet. They met each other when they barely had anything. Do you understand? So it's more of, is this man a hardworking man? Is he lazy? Is he purpose driven? Does he have goals for himself? Is he working towards the goals that he set for himself? Like, does he, like, what potentials can you see from this person? I think that should be more of the focus than just expecting somebody who's already made. I don't necessarily mind that. Like, as long as there's potential, I'm good.
Like you said, as long as there's potential and you're working towards it, right? So a man who is working towards his dream, I mean, he would eventually always get there. But social media, like you said, puts a lot of pressure. Oh, my man has to be driving this car. Oh, my man has to be earning this kind of money. We went to the Louis Vuitton store, and it was more like, oh, my man should be able to buy all these kind of bags for me. My man should be able to buy this, designer stuff for me and all of that. And that's what social media really puts. Like you said, most of these marriages, they were able to build together, right? You see a man with a vision, you know where he's going, and then both of you just build together, and then that also helps a relationship. Then you meet a man who is already made, and then you want to come into his life, and that's why people sign prenups now.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, somebody asked me if I was going to sign a prenup, but I said no, I'm so sorry. I'm not coming to be a gold digger, but I'm also not going to sign a
Fair
prenup.
enough. Yeah, but I feel like people are trying to protect themselves too as well,
Yeah.
because you never can tell the intentions of people.
Yeah.
Like,
You might see Hakimi now and what he did, and
Yeah.
all of that. So I just feel like people are really cautious of what
Mm.
and then
what
I don't think that you should go into a relationship if you're being too careful. And that's also what's causing the problems.
problem.
You're being too careful. You're not allowing yourself be yourself in the relationship. So
Yeah.
now you have not fully expressed your personality to this person.
Yeah.
And then when you guys now go and carry yourselves and go and get married, you now start to see things like, now you're not able to pretend anymore. You're not able
Yes.
to. Of course, now you're vulnerable. You can't. This is somebody who you live with. You can only pretend for so long.
so long.
So
yeah.
now you are now expressing who you are to this person, something that you didn't show them before. So now they are taken aback. Like, who is this person and why are they acting this way?
This way.
So I think those things. Being too careful is also something. I know that that's another thing. We've all experienced like a heartbreak or here and there. It's just, I think also the way that we address healing from one before we jump into another is something too.
It's very
like, make
important.
sure that you've addressed how you're feeling first before you now, go ahead and date somebody else. That's also something.
I totally agree with you when you say you should address your healing, because your past relationships, if you don't address it, it plays a vital role in how your relationship will look like moving forward.
Yeah.
Right. So you had if you're still healing, you need to take that time off and heal. You don't just bring that damaged perspective to another relationship and then it affects you having a quality relationship or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's very important, like you said, that you need to heal from whatever trauma it is, whatever issues. If you need to seek help, right? So that you can move forward, and then you know that you're starting on a fresh and on a clean slate. And then you're not bringing trauma into something new that should be beautiful and wonderful.
Yeah.
And things like that.
But sorry to cut you short, but I feel like it's easier said when you say when people should heal and all of that. So people never ever heal. You meet them and the issues that they had in the past is still haunting them to this day.
Yeah.
For instance, trust issues. Maybe they dated someone for so long and probably the person cheated and all. That is going to be an issue in the new relationship. There's always going to be some form of, maybe checking on phone and stuff like that. Like my partner, when I started dating her initially, I would see her sometimes checking my phone, going to my social media, looking for who commented on what, but it took her time to know, see, I'm here, like there's nothing, and all of that, So I feel like it's easier said in that way, Then I wanted to also add, I know you said potential is good, but Nigerians, I've seen where they will say things like, who potential help?
No, seriously.
And I'm telling you see things like
potential we go chop.
Exactly.
No, there should actually be a timeline for working with potential. There should also be a timeline. So you're not talking about somebody who's really below the poverty level. They obviously have to, before you get somebody onto your life, you have to have something that's going on for yourself. Now, my own looking out for potential is more of, if you want the worldly things, of course, but you cannot go into a relationship if you be okay for yourself first, be able to eat, be able to afford
do your
small
stuff,
things
yes.
before you like it shouldn't be that you're looking for potential and the person is just laying in bed every day. They're not nothing's going on for them, then that's different. That's why people would say that
potential means you have to see growth.
Exactly.
There has to be progress over time.
Exactly.
And you're on a timer, so
you can't date somebody for 2 years and there's no growth at all. Like,
you haven't
just
seen that
keep
they have
saying
made
things.
any
Words are cheap. Action will always show. And things like that. And also, you were talking about, you used Hakimi as an example. And I'm also looking at, I think Akon faced the same thing.
Yeah.
But in his case, he was married to his partner for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And he faced the same thing. She wanted a divorce and all that. But I think he had transferred his assets and all and things like that. So we're seeing it even in marriages that has lasted for so long. Right.
For me, I feel like for the Akon case, I don't think that it was more about money for the lady or anything. It's just that probably they grew apart on issues, because most of the time I feel like ladies or whoever, I'm not just pushing it to just ladies. Whoever gets into a relationship for the sake of trying to get someone's wealth or something, usually don't stay for 20 years.
Yeah.
They come in, they do what they want to do, and hey,
they
irreconcilable differences, give me half of your money, and they go, So I think Ikon's case was just something that probably just happened, but I don't think it's the intention that she wanted to go in just for the money. Yeah. So that's what I think.
Okay. I know we talked a lot about family involvement, especially in Africa. I mean, here I see it, but not the way we see it a lot. And then sometimes family involvement, it can be a good thing and a bad thing, right? For example, here I know that when you start having children, you always want family because you need the extra help. So those are the good sides of having family around. They'll help you raise the child and things like that. But in Nigeria and Africa, where family involvement can become a headache. Let me put it that way. When family is always trying to be involved in everything you're doing and all of that. Can we talk about family involvement in relationships?
I feel like I agree with you that it has its pros and cons. But you see that in Nigeria, let me put it in Nigeria, you see that first of all, I've heard women say that they hope that their mother-in-law is dead before they get to meet their husband. I've heard that. It might sound like a joke.
I mean, I've seen it online.
And they don't want to deal with mother-in-law issues, even though they've not even met the woman or anything.
Those ones are talking just speaking from experience. I think so. Because
it may not necessarily be experience, maybe what they've seen,
That's what I'm saying. Maybe their mother had experienced something from the mother-in-law. So
yes, exactly. And so they don't want to deal with that and all of that. But to be honest, you see that sometimes family sometimes can have significant influence on a marriage. It's just the way I think our culture is. You hear things like now it's a bit more relaxed. You hear things in the past like probably the lady not being able to have a child or have only female kids, and the family is like, you have to give us a male child. You see things like family interfering in stuff interfering that to the extent that the wife or the husband is questioning who are you loyal to in some way, So I feel like in Africa it's a big issue, and it's totally different. The family once you get married they don't disturb you. Do whatever you want to do. If you have problems, you can come and we can give you advice, but you do whatever works for you. In fact, when you even come and say, hey, we're getting a divorce. Oh, I'm so sad it has to happen. And that's it. And that's where it ends, So I feel like it's totally different if you want to compare, Yeah.
And as a couple also, where do you draw the line, right? Where do you draw the line with family involvement in your marriage? Because at the end of the day, it's you and your spouse and your kids, whatever. And then if you keep allowing family to interfere, I'm not saying you shouldn't listen to your parents. I'm not saying you shouldn't take advice from your parents, your siblings, or whoever. But at what point do you realize that these things are beginning to affect my marriage and I need to fix it? I should draw the line between my own marriage and then family's involvement. Because I did see a video one time, and it's not even in Africa, it was here, where the mother-in-law was telling the wife that she should sit at the back. She's going to sit in front.
Really?
It's her son's car. She's going to sit in front. And
but
then she said,
why does that matter?
She said, and the lady was like, okay, that's fine. You can sit in the front. There's another car. I'm just going to go get the other car and we'll meet there. So where do you draw the line for these things?
I think it's before, honestly, if I start to date a man, right? From when you're dating, there should already be a line. Like the man is drawing. That's the reason why he's in charge. To be honest, there should already be a line that's drawn between where the boundaries that we're setting between ourselves. Like okay, this is my woman. He does not even have to spell it out. It's more of how he handles things between both of them.
Exactly.
Do you understand? So they already know. Okay, this is a no-go area for this person's wife, and she already knows this is a no-go area. I don't think it should be that much of a big deal where people are dragging front seats with their mother-in-law. If she wants to sit in front, let her sit in front, and you see that in the back.
Exactly.
It's not that serious.
Yeah.
But I think there are other issues that come up. It's always, for me, I feel like the stories I've seen is always within the mother and the wife, and it's more of who is trying to get more attention from the husband. And then any form of attention to either of them that seems like either of them feels like they're not getting, or they're losing some form of attention or affection from their son or the wife or the spouse, they tend to be resentment, and they tend to have a lot of quarrels and stuff like that.
I've heard some people say that they also have these conversations too, like, okay, when can our parents come and visit? How long can they stay for? Can they be living with us? Things like that. That they have conversations like that and differentiate. Okay, this time they're not staying too long. This time they're staying too. Things have to be spelled out for them to have clarity. They can't just be living there like it's the lady's house, and now she's the wife. You are the mother.
Exactly.
If we're being honest, the wife comes first. Even when they have a child, the wife still comes first.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. But you may have cases where the mother or the family wants to come around, and they most likely probably will stay for a longer period of time, and the wife is uncomfortable with it. I mean, I've had a scenario where a guy got married, and in their culture, he had to raise one of their relatives. One of the relatives came to stay with him. And the lady was like, no, this cannot happen. This is not what...
So he never told her before?
He never told her. And the family, well, you have to take care of this guy. He's going to help you with the chores in the house and all of that, but you have to train him. And she was like, I don't... And it was a very, very big issue. I don't think I know where that ended, but
honestly,
I feel like...
The whole divorce, the whole relationships being hard these days, I think is more because there are things that we're leaving unsaid and unaddressed. Just talk about, like, put everything on the table. Now we're about to be dating. Like, just put every single thing that you think might come up later as a problem on the table. But people don't do that. Like, so that's pretty much what I think is going on with the dating scene now. Is more like a lot of things that have never been addressed, that have never been spoken about. Like, people are just dealing with themselves with very, not even up to half information, like very little information about themselves.
So do you think people are just being careful of what they give out, and they just I give it this information, I give it, and and just trying to
people don't even communicate, right? They would rather communicate with social media. You see, people would rather come up and say, I've seen where people will come out to put out anonymous things so that you give them ideas and opinions, or give them advice. And you're taking advice from random people you don't know.
Based on their own personal experiences that may not necessarily work for you.
Instead of sitting down and having an honest communication with your partner.
Right? That really bothers me, because sometimes I even see it from people who have come from good homes. Like, what happened to your parents? Why can't you make them your models? Like, if you have so much questions to ask about marriage because you have now just gotten into it and you're unsure, and because you're new to it, why not ask them? It's not hard to, like, it's not even bad. Ask them. Or if you're a Christian, you can maybe not necessarily involve your pastor, but most churches have like marriage counseling sessions or whatever. You can go there and ask. But coming to the internet, where it's already toxic, to be asking people whose lives are bitter or who are bitter about something, about it doesn't make sense, to be honest.
Do you think with dating apps, right? That's where a lot of people meet people these days, and it's like, I can always go meet somebody else tomorrow. I can always, I mean, that's what it is right now.
Like, there's so many.
I know that before it used to be probably through family introductions. And imagine if your family was introducing you to somebody, you will take some time to know that person, if it's going to be a good match or not. But today, I'm just going to randomly meet somebody on social. I can be talking to like 10 different people on a dating app, right? If this one works, this one doesn't work. I can be with this for a few weeks. If it works, fine. If it doesn't, I move on. So nobody's really trying to put in that effort to get to know somebody. If there's a little issue, let me just move on to the next person. Right? Or rather than back in the day, you probably have to go somewhere, maybe in a bar, you meet somebody in a bar, you strike up a conversation, build a relationship. Because it doesn't happen often, you take your time to know that person, you invest into knowing that person. So do you think dating apps actually play I mean, they do play a positive role because you get to meet people, especially
Yeah.
if you're not the type that goes out a lot. You're not the type that, talk to people a lot and all
Yeah.
of that. But I think it also have a negative impact. Like, I'm talking to a whole lot of people. I can just keep switching,
It does.
Yeah, I think it has its pros and cons. Dating sites, you can meet serial killers there. You can meet, I mean, Mom Danny met his wife on a dating
On
site,
Hinge,
right?
yeah.
So it has pros and cons. And for me, it's. I think we're living in the age of dating sites, apps, and all of that.
Mhm.
People rarely meet people randomly,
Yeah.
on the street, or there are still arranged marriages,
Yeah.
especially in parts of Asia, even in Nigeria and other African
Mm.
countries and all of that. And I think we're in the age of dating apps,
Yeah.
I met my partner through a dating app too as well. Luckily, I didn't have to swipe a lot, So, so I feel like it's and it's evolving. You see a lot of them coming out, and all of them, they have different how do I put it? The different ways to get you hooked on it.
Yeah.
People go on the dating apps for different reasons.
Different reasons, yeah.
Some is nothing serious. There are sites that are for nothing serious, and it's clear that the owners that made the app made it that way. There's some, if you're lucky, you meet people that are really, that are worthy. For me, it's just, it has its pros and cons. And that's pretty
And
much
also, like I said, a lot of people we don't do the conventional things anymore. When I'm in the subway, for example, sometimes I'll just look around. Nobody's talking to nobody.
Yeah,
Everybody's
because you
on
don't
their
know who's
phones,
saying.
Like we don't talk to people
Don't do
anymore.
that.
We don't strike conversations anymore. So everything now is digital. So you meet people through dating apps and all of that. So it's like, it's easy to meet somebody. I can just leave this relationship. I'm just gonna go meet somebody else tomorrow.
There's a certain level. I feel like these days the tolerance level is very,
It's so
very
low.
slow.
Yeah.
Like any small thing, people will be like, "No, I can't handle this. I can't deal with this," and they're
It's the whole
out.
idea of there are many fishes in the ocean.
Ocean, yes,
And
exactly.
there are no many fishes in
And
the
there are no
ocean.
many, at least quality ones,
Yeah.
right? So I just feel like, when I hear some arguments, like, so I have this friend, and she would be like, "Oh, I fought with so my partner today, blah blah blah." I'll be like, "So what happened?" It could be one of the pettiest things.
Yeah.
Oh, he just ate and he dumped the stuff in the sink, and I've told him to always wash it immediately. But did he what? Yes, he actually cleaned it, but he did it 1 hour later or something like that. And then our mood is, so I just feel like, some things, you will meet the perfect person.
Yeah.
There are some things that you have to compromise a little bit. But your red flags, the ones that are big, you make sure that you have to tick this box. But people's tolerance level these days is so low, And when you come on social media and see some things that people write, you'll be like, "Oh, this one is just trying to act like I don't take nonsense from anybody. If you do this, I'll cancel you." That's the word, they are cancelled. And they move on.
I remember on Twitter there used to be this female feminist, and she was always talking about men and how you should stay away from men, and how she
is it the
doesn't
one that got married?
And then she got married, and then she posted her engagement pictures
after leading so many people astray.
And that's what social media does. People just form a persona online, and then they just talk about things that they're actually not. They don't practice what they preach, and then you keep following these people, and at the end of the day they're doing something else. So I know at the beginning we talked about culture and values, and these days I'm beginning to see here a lot of intercultural marriages, people from different countries, and and I know that dating somebody from your culture is not easy, right? Marriage itself is not easy, even with somebody from your culture. Now, I mean, for you, for example, I know your wife is from Puerto Rico. Now, what's the cultural differences? How does it play dynamics in marriages?
I feel like it plays a very important role. So for me, dating my wife, right, when I met her, there was a bit of friction because of the culture. And what helped us was that if you notice Hispanics and Caribbeans and all of that, they have a bit of history with Africa.
Yeah.
And so they're very family oriented and, you know, and stuff. So that helped us a lot, you know, and we're able to, you know, build on that. But there was, during the early stages, we had a lot of friction. I was like, what is this? Can't I just go back to the Nigerian lady that will understand me and, you know, and all of that. But over time, she began to understand. I began to understand her too.
Yeah.
You know, and funny enough, it's wonderful now. And, you know, there's no issues whatsoever. You know, every now and then, you know, you have one or two things that will come, but it's nothing that is so big that you cannot, you know.
I mean, shout out to your wife. I've met her before, and I know that the way, you know, she tries to understand you, understand your culture. I mean, tries to cook Nigerian food and things like that. So shout out to her for that. But I've seen marriages where one of my friends was telling me that, man, he started eating mashed potatoes. You know, he started eating mashed potatoes every day. Breakfast is always bacon. He's like, we can't even eat pounded yam and egusi soup, you know. And so these are some of the issues that they face, and at the end of the day, it leads to, you know.
Yeah, but nevertheless, if you notice, there's been a growing trend of Nigerians or Africans marrying people, going into interracial marriage.
Yeah, and it works.
And it works. You see on TikTok or someone, you know, and I don't know. I feel like part of it is the jackpot syndrome, I guess. People migrating all the way from here. And rather than just stay, because in the West, I feel like it's very individualistic. You know, you can stay in an apartment and you won't know your neighbors and all of that. So there's always a sense of trying to socialize and all of that. And you have to work with what you have, right? Living where you are. And so I feel like, you know, it's growing, you know, and for me, it's something that I can speak to, and I feel like it works. If you put in the work, it works, you know. But usually it's always some form of friction, you know, understanding the culture or what this means and all of that. So I give you an instance. So my wife, I send money back home to, you know, my mom, and I'll be like, so usually at the end of the month, I'll be like, are you sending something? I said, no, I'm not. Why should I send money to my... I was like, but they're your parents. They've, you know, they are now, they've retired. And, you know, wouldn't you send them something? Like, no, that's not how we do it here. Like, that even if she sends money, they're going to send it back to her, because she said in the eyes of the family, she still was that little girl that they had. And use your money to do what you want to do and all of that. I said, that one cannot work for me.
we have a culture of taking care of.
You know, we have a culture of taking care of family and, you know, and stuff like that. So different things like that you see, you know.
And that's another issue, because, I mean, she understands, right? But you will meet somebody else who is like, I'm not sending money home. Why should you? We should be spending the money here. And then that becomes an issue.
Yeah.
All right, so that brings me also to this point where you talked about Japa, and then people Japa and they leave their partners at home, right? How does that affect relationships? Because at some point you'll be looking for how to bring your partner over to come meet you, and, you know, how does that play a dynamic role in relationship, with long distance relationships, you know?
I feel like, you know, for long distance relationship, it's very dicey. You know, you're not with the person. You know, things can change over time. People can easily fall in love with other people, you know, based on the environment that they find themselves, you know. And so it's very dicey for me. And I feel like I've heard stories where long distance relationships actually worked. But sometimes, you know, it depends on other factors too as well. And what do I mean by that? You know, when you travel, like probably a guy or lady travels to a new country, you know, the loneliness kicks in. You know, and especially when there's no timeline for you to have your partner travel over to live with you and all of that. You know, there's this tendency that you might want to just look for something, you know, or someone to be with, you know, and that could, you know, could wreck the whole thing, you know, and all of that. So I think it's a very dicey one, you know. And usually you find out that sometimes when couples that are previously in long distance relationship get together in a different country, you see that the dynamics begin to change. especially when they start working, or they'll say the woman started earning much more money, and now she has a voice, and now she has called police to kick him out.
I was just going to say that.
And stuff like that.
It happens. I've seen it a lot in UK
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of people who jackpot to the UK, and they say, oh, the wife kicked out the husband because of one issue or the other. Probably long distance. They were away for a couple of years. They come back. It's a new environment. Life is different, and then adjusting back to these new things becomes a problem for them, and then it becomes an issue, and then the wife is having to call the cops. And some of the things that traditional men will also do in Nigeria and get away with, they cannot get away with it in the
yes,
UK.
correct.
So
correct.
So now those are things that affect marriages, and like you said, communication is key. Open communication. Now, jackpot is going to affect you in various ways. There will be long walk, like you will be working long extended hours. The wife is also going to be working. How do we handle domestic chores? How do we handle certain things? There's no domestic staff. Everybody's going to have to put their hands to work and all that. So,
and usually when women come here over, like and they see that they are in a society where their voices can be heard, and if someone isn't treating them right, they can speak up, and not just speak up. Something is going to be done about it. The men some of the men would deem it as you not being loyal, or you having to change. But it's not necessarily that. It's that they've come to places where the law is supreme, and they have a voice, and all of that. So
I totally agree. Also, this also leads to the direction of expectation in relationships, not necessarily marriages, right? People always have different expectations. I've heard people say, "Oh, I can't marry this person because he's still a student, and he probably wants me to file for them, and then maybe that's why he wants to be with me. What would happen in 2, 3, 4 years?" After he's gotten permanent residency or whatever, So let's talk about expectations in relationships, like knowing why this person is going into a relationship with you, and the expectations you need to have communications around that.
I feel like expectations are different based on the location. So if we're comparing the diaspora and Nigeria, I feel like they're two different things. In Nigeria, it's pretty much, most often than not, it's pretty much a guy who wants company in terms of a lady, not necessarily financial support or anything, but support in some way. He needs a partner, let me put it that way. And he wants someone that he can call his own, and be together with her. I feel like the expectations for men is most often than not necessarily financial, but for the women it's tilted towards being financially okay, and being able to take care of me, and if possible take care of my needs and other stuff, but comparing that with the diaspora, it's way different. Like we talked about, Nigerians here are very skeptical. It's about checking out if it's all about sizing up the person in terms of what you can give me. So if it's a stay, if it's green card, if it's what they call it in Canada, permanent residency and all of that. I've seen TikTok videos where you have people in Canada saying, "Oh, I spoke to this." That usually when Nigerians go out on a date, the first questions or the first 3-4 questions usually tilt towards, do you have your papers and all of that. And once you don't have it, you see that, the
interest declines.
The interest declines instantly, and you don't hear from them anymore. Same thing with
you will not blame them, because, like I said earlier, you don't know why the person is, like you said, it's what you can offer me or whatever, but you don't know why somebody's getting with you. You can't read people's minds, right? And so when people say that they cannot date a student, I don't blame them. I personally don't have any issues with it, to be honest. I don't have any issues with it. But when people
would you be skeptical if you were dating or you met someone that is a student, but you really like the person?
No, the last person I dated was a student, literally. So I don't have any issues with dating a student, to be honest. But a lot of women will say that they do, and I don't blame them. They've seen where they've dated, or where somebody has dated a student, the person got their papers and just switched up on them. Nobody wants that, to be honest. And even me saying that I don't mind it, of course, I will have questions in my heart, like, okay, am I doing the right thing? How can I tell that this person is not essentially after me just filing for them and then they get away, to be honest? Because, and then if that's the dynamic of the relationship, the two of them have to put so much work into it. They have to know that, okay, now it's more like, you're not necessarily trying to convince this lady that you're trying to be with her for real, but it's more like you're trying to remove the doubt that might be in her heart. She's a human being. I think that people need to understand that it's dynamic. It's always a dynamic situation when it comes to relationship. It's not one way or one size fit all. It's just always a dynamic between different relationships. So it's a conversation that even people must have, and you should be ready to. Of course, you know that then it might be small. The fight level might be increased a little bit, because you're just trying to understand, is this person with me for real or not?
You find out that you have I will see some TikTok videos or on Facebook or some of a Nigerian lady talking about her looking to marry or get someone from Nigeria, but you could put a clause and say, you must have a green card or you must be a citizen. I don't do blah, 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 blah. Like she will clearly state it that if you don't have your papers, we can, no matter how good you are, we can't even start anything.
Because they always believe that the intentions will always be the papers.
But don't you think you can miss out on real, genuine love?
That's the
by
thing.
Thinking that
you
way.
could miss
That's
out
people
on
putting themselves first. Like, I'm going to choose me over anything else, to be honest.
I mean, you could miss out on potential genuine love, but at the end of the day, being with somebody that you are not certain if this person is going to leave me, if he married me because he just wants me to file for them, or things like that. So I won't blame them, right? I won't. We've seen these things happen a lot, so you really cannot blame them.
And it's also not so much. It's a risk, actually. Everything in life is a risk, and if you meet somebody in that situation, I wouldn't say jump right into dating. Maybe spend some time getting to know the person. Maybe that would help you know if you can be with this person or not, paper or not. Just first try and understand who the person is and see if it's somebody you can date before you now jump right into dating, to be honest. I feel like that would take a little bit of the doubt away, because you're sure that, okay, this is who I know this person to be, and these are things that I know that they cannot do. Do you understand?
All the flags will be there eventually. So if you pay proper attention, you might see it. And if the person is,
well, sometimes you can hide it.
You can hide it, and you might not always catch it and all that, things like that. But now we've talked a lot about dating. In Africa, we've talked a lot about dating here, what we see and what we've experienced also. What do you think dating will look like in the future? Because we've talked a lot about how there's so much divorce now. There's so much no label in dating. We are just partners being together. We don't necessarily have to be married and things like that. And we know that even in Africa, it's changing. A lot of things that were not happening is beginning to happen in the dating scene in Africa also. What do you think dating will look like in 10 years and 20 years from now?
Honestly, I think we have a lot more situationships now. We don't even have more situationships. And I also think that a lot of ladies are now leaning more towards having, a sperm donor and just having a child, as opposed to like going into marriage where I'm going to have issues or whatever. So that might be where dating is going, eventually, because now it's like, oh, what's the point doing it when it looks like it's chaotic everywhere? People are doing it after a while and breaking up. I don't think I want to put myself through that. And if I want a kid, I could just go get the kid. So I think that's what it's leaning more towards now, which is quite sad, but like,
I agree with you. I feel like, the whole concept of marriage, of being in a marriage, is not really what I think. There's a shift away from that. You see a lot of women now, even Nigerian women that are in their 30s and 40s, and they're very confident. They don't feel the fact that they are not married. They don't feel any less of themselves, and they're very confident, and all of that. I don't have a man, that's fine. I'm not married, that's fine,
They're very okay with it. But also it's the family pressure might be reducing now. I don't think families are pressuring people to get married like they used to anymore.
Yes, exactly. They just let things flow. If you meet the right man, fine.
That's fine. If you don't, that's it.
So
I totally get that, because like you said, I know two people who they just have kids and they're fine. They're not thinking of getting married or anything. They're just fine with the kids, and to them that gives them happiness. And
to be honest, that is going to affect the future,
yeah,
because
it will.
now it's time for those kids to grow up.
Yeah.
They might also not be interested in marriage because they
Yes,
don't even
exactly.
understand.
So it
Yeah.
starts creating a
It's
cycle.
a cycle.
Yeah.
So
And then
yeah.
that could be a problem for the future, like you said. And honestly, there are also people who want to be in marriages, right? There are people who actually want to get married, start a family, but you don't meet somebody because it's difficult now, right? It's difficult to meet people that have the same vision, aligned with you, right? So it's I don't know,
I think
but
Aruna said it before.
yeah,
The reason why that is because there's no tolerance level no more.
Mm.
Everybody expects people to be perfect. Nobody's giving grace to anybody anymore.
More,
It's just like, okay, if you're not perfect, and if you're obviously, as women, we have, I don't know if it's the same with guys, but we always have an idea of the kind of man that we want.
Yeah.
So that's why when you start dating a woman, you see maybe at the beginning of it, she's complaining about a bunch of things. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? That's me. Like, I don't know how to keep my mouth shut. Like, if some things are not happening the way that I want, I'm questioning it, especially because I'm a firstborn child, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a girl. So, like, I start to question things. Why not doing this? Like, I'm confused. So, it's like we have those expectations, but sometimes I just, take a few steps back and then talk to myself, okay, you people are from different backgrounds, right? You have not grown up with the same parents. So, that means that you'll be different.
Yes,
so,
correct.
whatever it is that you're expecting, they wouldn't know that you're expecting until you communicate it, right? And then give them a little time to try and learn whatever it is that you are expecting from them. Also, they have to learn what you expect. So it's why I like it when people say love people in their own language as opposed to how you know how to love. So it's just learning how somebody likes to be loved, and then vice versa.
So,
you can't love them the way that you know how to do it. So I would say the first part of the whole dating thing is supposed to be a learning process.
True.
And people skip that part. They just want to jump right into it and neglect the fact that these are two different people coming together.
And usually when they don't see the way, when the relationship is not the way they want it to be, they just chicken out easily and just say, I'm done, I'm going to, and then you go again and you get somebody that checks
the same
this,
circle.
and it's the same
crazy,
circle.
Because my last relationship, I got broken up with several times. It's crazy. It is insane. So,
and you guys came back, broke up again, or what?
No, it was not a breakup where there was space. I didn't leave space. I don't want to lose you. I'm not. That's the thing with, you can't. We're two different people, but if you are not on the same, if people are not, you have not come to an agreement, it's just going to keep happening. So like, this person wants to break up. I'm not trying to do that. I want to put in the work. Like, I understand that we're two different people, but I want to put in the work. It does not mean that every small inconvenience we're breaking up. It is only right that we have differences. It is only right.
So you have to unlearn certain things and relearn certain things.
And then give time for them to do that. But it's just now it's just
it's just the same thing we said from the beginning, that even for people that grow up in the same society, right? Even if you grow up in Nigeria, both grew up in Nigeria, for example, it's still the same, different household, right? It's still different dynamics. So that you have to unlearn certain things, relearn certain things. You have to be willing to compromise.
Yes.
I'm not saying you should lose yourself in the process. No, you're not losing yourself, but you're compromising because you're bringing somebody different into your space, right? And so you have to relearn how to live with them. You have to unlearn certain things that you've already learned before, just so that you can have a better relationship moving forward. I mean, it's been an amazing conversation talking about dating in Africa and dating in the diaspora, but we would love the conversation to keep going in the comment section. So make sure you put comments, make sure you ask questions, and tell us what you think about dating in the diaspora and dating in Africa. Make sure to click the subscribe button and also turn on the notifications so that you'll be the first to know when we drop a new episode. Thank you so much for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you very, very soon.
Bye.